In this video, we're going to be talking about the Italian classic film Bicycle Thieves, directed by Vittorio De Sica, which came out in 1948, and why it's a must-see film for cinephiles and movie lovers from around the world. Hi everyone, I'm Robert Bellissimo. I'm an actor and acting teacher with Coffee with Aliens at the Movies. We are a film channel dedicated to film history and film reviews. And today I want to talk about this classic film and its importance, its relevance, and how even today it can still get you emotionally no matter how many times you've seen it. And one thing that always gets me is the emotional, is how no matter how many times you've seen it, will just bring you right into the world of this desperation of this family who are living in poverty in Rome just after World War II, where the economy was really not doing very well. People were barely getting by, starving at times, and he gets this job. The father of this family, Antonio, gets this job as to hang posters up around the city. And of course, it's a good job and it pays well. He's really excited. All he needs is a bike. He doesn't have a bike. He doesn't even have any money to get a used bike, nothing. So he had pawned a previous one, and there's one line that always gets to me where his wife says, "Why did you pawn the bike?" And he says, "So we can eat that night." And I just think, could you imagine having to go and sell your clothes or furniture or what have you just so you can eat? And this is something that is universal, because people struggle in this way all the time. So that line, and it hits you, and it's a really early scene, and it happens right away that he needs this bike. So he goes around, he gets the bike back. His wife sells sheets, that they take all their bed sheets, pawn the bed sheets, and then get their bike back. And then, of course, before you know it, as begins to start work, he's very excited. He gets his son Bruno involved, and the bike is stolen. And then from there, even though I've seen it a million times, you still are like, oh my God, get that bike back. Chase that guy who stole your bike. Get him. Oh my God, where's the police? Get the police. Why are the police not taking this seriously? And it just pulls at your heartstring. And it's because the acting was so great. And again, De Sica used non-professional actors, and that's the other brilliance about this film. And this is great for cinephiles and anyone who wants to be a director or a screenwriter, is that they just went out and shot this thing. De Sica couldn't get any studio to back this film. He raised the money on his own, and they wanted it to be as realistic as possible. So they shot in real locations. They use real people who were not actors, who could really understand the emotional life of these characters, who really were these characters. Like, for example, the main character, Antonio, he was a factory worker. And actually, when this film ended, he actually lost his job when he went back to work and had to actually struggle to find work. And then he began to work in movies and was even struggling to get work in movies. So these people were living this part. This is not just something they played. And that's why it's so real. And, nowadays we live at a time where with our phones, I'm shooting this video right now with a phone. I could shoot a feature film with this phone for very little money. And this comes from Neorealism, what they called at the time, which started in France. And a lot of the Italian filmmakers, De Sica, Rossellini, they were working in France before the war, where this movement began of, let's shoot this like a documentary. So they started doing this in Italy. And of course, this is one of the greatest neorealism films of all time, Bicycle Thieves, if not the best Italian film of all time. In my opinion, it is. And De Sica really knows how to play with emotions, really to get to an audience. And it's not just a slice of life, it's a real heightened film in the sense that this bike means everything to them. Without that bike, they don't eat. Without that bike, he can't afford any money. Without that bike, he can't make any money. Without that bike, he can't feed his children, himself, his wife. There's so much riding on this. It's got, the stakes are so high, and what's brilliant about it is it's simply a bike. But in the economic times, getting that bike was almost impossible. The desperation from the actors, the immediacy of the shooting, the roughness of the streets, all the characters are where he found some of these people, and De Sica was incredible. David Lean was watching them film at the time, and he couldn't believe how great De Sica was with crowds, with people. He just, some of these people had never acted before, but he knew they were right for the part. he had just had a brilliant eye for and ability to be able to get non-professional actors to do these. These are not easy parts. I mean, this would be hard for a professional actor to do, but he knew that they understood it. He knew he can get it out of them as long as they can be themselves. Another thing that, as much as we talk about the neorealists being, very dramatic films and very heightened reality stories and the roughness and the documentary style of the film, at the same time, there's always moments of humor. And I can imagine that De Sica maybe did that because he wanted to soften it a little bit. Soften what's going on. Rossellini did this too in Rome Open City. And it's those moments where at one point Antonio sees an old man talking to the guy who stole his bike. So he loses the young man, but he gets the old man. So he chases after the old man in order for him to tell him where this guy was who took his bike. And the old man's giving him a hard time. I don't know anything. And so he goes into a church and he's chasing him around the church. And then other people are chasing them to stop making all the noise. And every time a couple of the guys walk by the aisle, which leads up to where the priest is, they do the sign of the cross. And he does that a couple of times. And there's just moments like that of humor. And then even in the church, Bruno is looking, he opens the confessional to see if maybe the old man is hiding in there. At one point they lose track of him, and there's a priest in there, and he just kind of taps him on the head to get out. So there's just these moments of humor that you find, and I think it was just to soften it a little bit, give the audience just a little relief from the intensity, the desperation, the emotions behind what's at stake here if this man doesn't get this bike. And the brilliance of the end of the film is the irony is that the whole time that you hate. Very early on when the bike gets stolen, you hate the thief. You want Antonio to find this thief, get him arrested, throw him in jail. But you begin to have empathy for the thief because Antonio then has to make the same decision. When he can't get the bike back, he finds the guy who did it, but he can't prove that he did it. And everyone defends this guy, and the cop even says to him, hey, if you don't have any witnesses and you bring this guy to court, he can actually get you in trouble for accusing him of something he didn't do, that you have no evidence that he did it. So in the end, he becomes a bicycle thief. He steals a bike when there's no other options, when it's between taking the chance to go to jail or getting that job and being able to eat and take care of his family. He does it, but the difference is he gets caught red-handed right away. Everyone sees him do it. The guy who owns the bike sees him do it immediately. But then so it gives you empathy for the young man as the bicycle thief, because you think, why did he have to do it? And when Antonio earlier in the film goes into the bicycle thief's house with the policeman to see if the bike is there, this young man is also living in poor conditions with 4 or 5 people in one room, small room. And you think, why did he have to steal that bike? So obviously the choice, it's not a good choice, but it gives you empathy for the desperation of these people, that they had to break the law and commit a crime in order to get by. So I love that. That's something that, just watching it again recently, that I didn't catch on to before, is playing with irony and playing with empathy there for even the bicycle thief. The young man is the bicycle thief, that is. But then another part that I love is that as they're going to take Antonio to jail in the end for stealing the bike, and the man suddenly looks over at Bruno, Antonio's son, sees him crying, and it's a heartbreaking scene where he's pleading for his father, Papa, Papa, and he's trying to get everyone to leave his father alone, and you can see Antonio breaking. It's just the last straw. He's just at the end of his ropes, and now he's done this crime, and it was his last hope to get his job back no matter what. And of course what ends up happening is as soon as the man that Antonio stole the bike from sees Bruno crying, he lets them go. And I think at that moment he knew that it was necessary, that this was not, the guy did it out of necessity. He did it because he obviously doesn't know the circumstances, but he knew it must have had to do with being able to feed the son, feed himself. And that's heartbreaking, you know. But I think, as sad as the ending is, that he doesn't get the bike back, and he's broken and he's crying, and they're both, you know, walking away after he's been let go by the man who he stole his bike from. But it's hopeful, because in the sense that someone had empathized with him, that showed him compassion. So it makes you think, well, maybe someone else will show him compassion the next day. Maybe someone will give him a bike, or maybe he will get that bike soon. And that's what I took from it. But it's just an unforgettable film, and I just love this movie. And so I know this is a film that many people know, but if you're a cinephile, if you're a director, if you're a screenwriter, film buff, producer, you got to see this film, because we need more people to just pick up a camera and tell a story that is from their hearts, that is something that they know that needs to be said. And at that time, these stories from the neorealist era needed to be said. A lot of the films in Italy at that time were comedies, they were light, and these guys said, no, we have to tell people what Italy is like now. And we need this all the time. What's going on in the world now? And visual literacy is how you reach people. It's better than just reading up something on the news, to see these stories, you know, and maybe that will give people more empathy for one another. Maybe we'll be more compassionate to one another. And that's what movies can do for me. And so if you haven't seen this film, it is available on Canopy. It's available on the Criterion channel. And I also have the DVD here. It's out on the Criterion collection right here. It's got loaded with special features. There's a book inside, as well as a number of documentary and interviews with the cast. Highly recommend ordering this as well. So that'll be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. You'll see the Coffee with Aliens logo floating above my head to the right here. Click on that, and that will subscribe you to my channel. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time.